Good morning. On behalf of the Leadership Development Association, I would like to welcome all of you and thank you for attending today's event. I also want to thank the 2010 LDA Board of Directors for their planning and initial contact with Coach Tressel's office to make today's event possible. Coach Tressel's winning statistics speak for themselves. But more than that, he uses the game he loves to grow people toward their full potential, both on the field and for all of life. We're truly honored that today the head football coach of the Ohio State University Buckeyes, Coach Tressel, is with us.
Thank you so much. I don't think I can stand behind that. I'm not very tall. But I can't tell you what an honor this is to be with this group. It's humbling, quite honestly. Anytime our staff and our young people have a chance to be around the people that serve our great nation, it's incredible. And we're so grateful for what each and every one of you do. I grew up at a time where I didn't take that opportunity to serve our country. I'm 58 years old, and I was during the time that we were in the Vietnam conflict, and there was a draft lottery and so forth, and my number happened to be 252 or something like that, and so I didn't get that honor of serving. And it really has been probably the largest vacuum in my life, because I grew up with a father who also ended up being a football coach. But more important, in my mind, is he was an American that unselfishly chose to serve his country. In the fall of 1942, my father was the player of the year in the state of Ohio in high school football, a little small school in Ada, Ohio. Paul Brown was the coach at Ohio State. He recruited my father to come to Ohio State. My father graduated from high school at midterm and came to Ohio State in the spring of 1943. And because there were a lot of students who were involved in the World War II conflict, they allowed freshmen to participate in the spring practice. And he had quite a good spring. In fact, in the spring game, he scored a couple touchdowns and threw a touchdown to Les Horvath, who later became a Heisman Trophy winner. And then at the end of the spring practice, he wrote a postcard home to my mom, who was his high school sweetheart. Postcard to someone an hour away, which in today's world doesn't make sense. But I have that postcard on my desk, and I see it every day, because the postcard said, I went in to talk to the coaches. I went down to the recruiting stations. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'll let you know on Tuesday. Well, he decided that he was going to enlist and serve. He was going to give up his dream of being at Ohio State, playing football. And he went on and served in World War II, ended up, after the war, going back to the northern part of the state where he had been sent to train in the Navy B-12 program, and ended up finishing his collegiate career at Baldwin Wallace College, where he later became the coach. But with all of the things that have been written about him, he's in the College Football Hall of Fame and Coaching Hall of Fame, and all the things that talked about in his career. The thing that I'm most proud of is that at that moment in our nation's need, he chose to serve. At the same time, my mom, who was graduating from high school that year, went and served in factory and then went on to get trained to be a nurse so that she could be prepared to serve if needed. So, folks that serve in any way, shape, or form for our country have the greatest, highest status, in my mind, of anyone. It was probably further cemented in my mind when this past May of 2009, early June of 2009, I had a chance for the first time to go and serve in a certain way. And I went overseas with a group of coaches to let our men and women who were overseas know how much we appreciated them. We started off over at Connell Air Force Base, and we spent a day with the folks there, those that were getting ready to be deployed, coming back, working behind the scenes, doing all the things that everyone that was overseas were going to need. And we got a chance to spend time with them and their families. Then we went over to Scott Air Force Base, spent part of the day with those folks and their families. And then we got on a KC-135 and we headed to Germany. And we landed at Ramstein and had a chance to go over to Landstuhl Military Hospital. And incredible. Every patient that we visited, all that was important to them was that they get back in shape so that they could go back and serve some more. Incredible attitude. After our day in Germany, we went and spent a day in Turkey at the Incirlik Air Force Base. Extraordinary folks there. Then we went into the theater, had a chance to go to the Balad Joint Base in Iraq. Huge base. Just so happened that the commander of the base was an Ohio State graduate school graduate. And so that too was in friendly confines. Then we went over to Camp Victory in Baghdad and had a chance to visit all those wonderful folks. Then we left there and went to Kuwait, and on our way to Kuwait we happened to be taking I think it was a C-17, I think that would be right, with a load of folks who were going home for the first time in an extended period. After spending time in Kuwait, we had a chance to go over to Djibouti, Africa, which, quite honestly, I didn't know there was a Djibouti, Africa. But we just went where they sent us. And it was extraordinary. Extraordinary. And we left Djibouti, Africa after spending a day, and the day we were there, it was about 130 degrees. It was warm in Iraq. It was hot and humid in Djibouti. We left there and went to Rhoda, Spain, spent a day there, and then we landed back at Andrews Air Force Base in D.C. And I learned so much. I had so much admiration going in for what everyone does, but seeing it firsthand and seeing how much bigger it was than simply what you might envision as someone that hasn't been around it as much, What we do, when I say we, I mean all of you. What we do for this world is extraordinary. The biggest takeaway I had from that trip was that this world is fortunate that the United States military and all the people that support it and give it a chance to do what it does, this world is fortunate for this group of people. The attitudes, extraordinary. The patriotism, it was kind of fun as we went to each of the different bases. After about the first 2 or 3 bases, and we had lined up tables and we got to meet all the troops and support people and so forth, and the line at the Ohio State table was always 3 times as long. That's the way it was. After about the 3rd location, the other coaches were teasing me. They say, does everyone in Ohio patriotic? They all have to be here. I said, well, those that are patriotic that have a task here are here, but we got thousands back in the state that are serving, doing things just as important. And so yes, the answer to your question, we're all patriotic. That's what we believe in. At every stop, the military is extraordinarily organized. I learned more every day when I came through here and I saw all these parts that you guys procure and all that stuff, and how the heck you keep it all straight, I have no idea. But when we got on our KC-135, they had all these bags. And we were giving away swag. And I learned that swag means stuff we all get, free stuff. It was a learning experience. I was told that that was derived from the Pirates acronym of stolen with a gun. Now, I don't know which is the case, but they had all these bags set with X number of t-shirts and pictures and caps and miniature footballs and so forth, that at every stop we would be able to give away so much swag and then go to the next stop. So when we were flying over to Germany, you could hardly find a place to sit in that KC-135 because of all the bags. I think they said there was like 75,000 pounds of swag when we started. And then as we went to each one, they'd take a bag out, we'd give it away, take a bag out. It was an extraordinary organization. Well, what happened at every stop is the Ohio State swag would run out. So I'd be signing UCLA t-shirts and great It got bad when I was signing some of the other coaches' pictures. It didn't make sense. But I can assure you, the greatest opportunity I've ever had in my life was to go and to see sacrifice, commitment, the pride, the care for one another, care for the rest of the world. I don't know, at any chance I get, to tell anyone, I don't know that our country knows just what our country provides. I'm sure the people here in Central Ohio have no idea what you do. But the beauty of leadership is that in our eyes, leadership is simply service. That's what it is. It's serving others. It isn't, you're the head coach and you're the assistant and you're graduate coach. That's not what leadership is. Leadership is the willingness of every single person to serve in whatever responsibility and opportunity they have to serve the good of the cause. And so when people talk about the leadership that our country takes, it is just that. We serve this entire world. And I'm not sure that we get the message across to our public just how many people serve and in what ways, and the pride that they take in their service. Perspective is so important. I know all of us have lots of things going on in our lives, but all you have to do is turn on the TV and see what's going on in Japan and see what the United States military is doing. I'm sure in parts, this particular group is critical in what's going on in the biggest problem of the moment. And you can go to any of those fragile moments that our world has had, and it's the United States military and all of the people that are a part of that are always there to serve. Obviously, this is a challenging world. It's a competitive world. It's a global world. I heard the colonel of the Ohio National Guard speak at the Ohio High School Coaches Association. The Ohio National Guard has partnered very strongly with the Ohio High School football coaches because so many good young men who have played the game of football end up serving. They're a tremendous resource. They have great commitment to one another. And the Ohio National Guard has a partnership with our program that they bring their folks over constantly. And we have one of our coaches who just retired, whose son is a West Point grad, and he works back with us part-time as our Director of Military Appreciation. And Colonel Harris at this Ohio High School Coaches Clinic challenged all those coaches, and we had about 1,800 coaches there, a combination of high school and college. And he challenged them with a phrase that I know you folks use all the time, and I know that the DLA uses, and it's imperative that we develop leaders. It's imperative that we develop leaders. And he gave us 3 or 4 points that, in my mind, really were critical. And easy to grasp. And I jotted them down, and you probably already heard that speech, but like anything that's critical, I think it's worth repeating. He talked about so critical for us, so imperative for us to develop leaders, because we are in a global recession. The needs of our entire globe, not just our own needs, are critical. He said the second thing is that the reality in our country to have that imperative desire to develop leaders is that right now we have a tremendous reliance on foreign energy. And we see what's going on in this world in those areas that we rely on that energy. And we need to develop leaders who are going to be able to handle whatever occurs in that region as a result of things that happen in that region, so that we will be able to provide the energy for our country and really for the rest of the world. The third thing he talked about tremendous need to develop leaders is that the technology gap in the world is narrowing. There was a time when we were well ahead in the technology world, and that gap is narrowing. And we need leaders to make sure that we never allow that technology gap to be narrowed to a dangerous point. He talked in terms of, I wish I could remember the exact number, but I thought he said 1.8 billion attacks on our computers and so forth in this country every month from outside groups in technology. So the ability to grow leaders and make sure we understand that that's a reality and be able to handle that is imperative. The fourth one he talked about was that burgeoning world population. The population of the world is extraordinary, which makes the needs of the world extraordinary. And as needs go up, the need for leadership, the need for service goes up. And so we have to make sure that we develop leaders. And then lastly, he said the asymmetric, and you know I didn't come up with that word, no coach could come up with asymmetric. But the asymmetric security threats that we have, I assume that means coming from lots of different sides, is real. And we're going to need to grow the leaders to be able to handle that. But what I think is so critical is that we understand that every one of us are leaders. Every one of us are servants. Every one of us have a role in all of those realities. And that it's our task to grow future leaders in a time that is a little bit more difficult. This will be my 37th year of college coaching. It's changed. The young people haven't changed too dramatically. They still want to know that you care for them. They still want to know what you expect of them. They still want to be evaluated. I think at this point in time, they want to know why a little bit more than they did 35 years ago. 35 years ago, you told someone to run through the wall, they did. They didn't ask why, it was just they were told to do it. That's the way it was. Now, if you told them to run through the wall, they'd ask why. And if they were okay with your rationale, they'll still do it. And in my mind, that interest in knowing why is good. Because I think when they do finally figure out why, they're even more committed. They're even more committed. And that's why we need to keep figuring out why what we do is so important. Because it is. And there are lots of different reasons. And the more we understand that, the more committed we'll be and we'll do our job better. And I think the kids these days, once we can reach them, they can become even more committed. We had a chance to meet General Odierno over at Camp Victory in Baghdad. And one of the first things he told us coaches was that today's military is the finest military we have ever had, with the finest support back home, both military and civilian, than we've ever had, ever in the history of our country. And those that are doing those tasks know why, they believe in it strongly, and that's why they're so good. They're committed. I think, in general, our youth are somewhat distracted, and it's more difficult to reach them at times, to get them to understand the rationale for why we need to do the things we need to do. They're distracted by multimedia. They're distracted by iPods and Facebooks, and Lexi and emails, and it's incredible. I don't know when they stop to think, because something's always rattling around in there. And that's real. That's real. That's why we have to work even harder as leaders, as servants, to help them get through their distractions and to make decisions that I really believe deep down are within them. I think our kids, our young people, want to do the right things and be the right kind of folks. I really do. I also think they're highly distracted. My guys are really distracted because ever since they were 8 years old, everyone told them they were wonderful, they were the fastest guy, the biggest guy, the strongest guy, come play on my team, switch high schools, come to my high school. Hey, where are you going to go to college? The world's going to end if you don't come to our college, and all those things. So my guys are even further distracted. And I think something as leaders in our world, most especially at the top 50 type schools in major college football, I think we have a challenge right now, and we have to come up with some solutions to help these young people who from ages 8 to 18 were bombarded with distractions that might not have been realistic. No one, when they were telling them they were wonderful and they loved them and they wanted them to come to their school or whatever, told them, and oh, by the way, when you're 26 and you can't run anymore, we don't need you. They left that part out. They've distracted them for the moment. And so one of the great challenges we have in just a very small population is to bring the reality and help them learn. And I think that's crucial in what we do. That's one of our leadership realities that we have. That's why we bring the military into our building, have them meet with our players constantly.